Hi everyone. I am sitting here ready to do another first listen to a band and a song that I have never heard and I know nothing about. I haven't been given a single clue as to what this might be. I did ask Vlad. Well, you've probably figured out something about me by now if you've been following my journey so far. I do hard things for fun. I like tough challenges. And you've noticed how on my channel, even though it's not the overall intent of the channel, I kind of dove into metal music after my first listen to Metallica and Justice for All. It was tough for me, and so of course, along the way, I kind of went that way a bit because I didn't understand it, and it was hard, and it is a challenge, and I do that kind of thing for fun, just because, I don't know, I can't resist taking a challenge. But recently I told Vlad, okay, I need a little break from this. I'll come back to it, but I want something different for a little while. And so he has given me this song by a band called Cars, and the title is The Dangerous Type. And I said, so is this one metal too? He said, oh, no, it's not. And he said, I mean, come on, the band is called Cars, so really, it doesn't sound like a metal band, does it? And I said, well, I don't know, cars are made out of metal, or at least they used to be, so anyway, that's all I know about the band, but he tells me it's not metal. So I have no clue what it is. We'll see what happens. Let's give it a try. That's interesting so far. It sounds like the sort of music that somebody might listen to while they're driving down the road or something like that. Not really deep or complex, but kind of upbeat. I think of it as traveling music. It's a traveling piece of music. It just kind of goes along down the road. As you go along down the road, you can roll the windows down and enjoy the drive in your little car. You know, you're steering along. Whether it's in town or out on a country road, it works. Now, I'm intrigued with this sound here. I suppose it must be electric guitar. But it's another sound quality that I haven't noticed a whole lot being used in some of the other music I've listened to. It sounds more like a funny little old ancient horn. It's a little bit creaky. It's not really quite a brass sound, but if you listen to some of the old style horns before they had really developed much, they do have a sort of funny sound. And after the chorus here, that sound is coming in, and I kind of enjoyed it. It's a cute little sound, I guess I'd call it.
Inside angel, always upset.
now this is going to sound really weird and hilarious. But this is bringing back memories of myself as a student and kind of early on in my piano study phase. I was learning the all-famous Prelude in C by Johann Sebastian Bach. And it's the one that goes, you know, the one. You've heard it whether you love classical music or hate it. And I'll put a link here in case you want to check it out. I remember as a student playing that and being so intrigued with how he had placed that upper note to happen at different points of the beat within each bar, because it's played twice in each figure. And every time it comes, it falls on a different part of the beat. And it gave it this kind of cool syncopated sound if I would accent it a little bit. And it's so funny because here in this song, this E is showing up in much the same way, differently, at different parts of the beat. And of course, it's not a rare thing, especially in this type of music, which syncopation really is a significant part of it. But it's so funny that hearing it now threw me back to my days learning that Prelude in C major by J.S. Bach and the games I used to play with myself as I'm trying different ways of accenting different notes and things like that. It's really a strange feeling to be sitting here listening to this music, which is so unlike Bach, and yet have that memory come to the front. Okay, here we are. We'll start right here at the beginning of this verse. Now maybe you'll have your ears listening to that top note. Beep, beep.
My curiosity's got me tonight.
Beep, beep.
She's a lot like you. The dangerous type.
That was a bit of an ominous sound there when it said the dangerous type. Let's see if I can find where it is in the score here. It's kind of a sketchy score. Let me back it up just a little bit. I'd like to point it out to you if I can.
You out in the light. My curiosity's got me tonight. She's a lot like you. The dangerous type.
Aha! So, the drums come in here right at the end of this bar in this area, and they add this kind of deep, look out, she could be dangerous. Okay, we're going on. I'll back up just a bit and we'll go on from there. And you hear this harmonic sequence happening multiple times in this song. It's kind of the framework, harmonic framework for it.
She's a lot like you. Come on and hold me tight.
you hear the sequence happening each time, and it happens over and over. Well, of course, that part of the chorus is happening over and over too. It's being repeated multiple times, but I heard it earlier in the song as well, where there's this standard sequence that is being played over and over. Okay, we're kind of building up to a little bit of a climax, finishing the piece here, it sounds like. And did you notice also these, I don't know if it's a synthesizer or if it's another guitar that's faking the sound, but there's a sort of long sustained note that could be called a violin somewhere in here. Let's pick that out. There it is. And it's staying there. It's still there. And now there it is again. I think it's a synthesizer. Because I'm hearing a few other things coming down. Some little chimes. I guess I would like to go back through this song right here on the spot. I can tell by my first listen to it that it doesn't have a lot of deep musical content. And not only that, it's quite simple and repetitive, both formally, harmonically, rhythmically, lyrically. You know, it's, as I said, it sounds like driving down the road, something light and fun to listen to if that's what you want to hear. So I don't think that I'm going to do a separate in-depth video. Instead, what I'll do is right here, right now, let's go through the song again. And let's notice a few things that I want to point out very specifically. I mentioned a couple of them on the first listen as I was going through it, but maybe I can make it a little bit more clear to you what the substance of this music is and how it works and why we might like it, why we might enjoy it. So it starts off with this intro. Let's just listen to the intro together. Here we go. Right. So what do we hear there? We hear basically one chord with a couple little bass walking lines to give a little bit of dynamism to it. But it mostly features the rhythmic element. And it's a syncopated rhythmic element. You heard me mention in the first listen, I talked about the Bach prelude. I didn't pick it up here at the very beginning, but here it is again. That same E and then the E again right here. And if we look at the way the beats are divided, we have the first beat happening right here on this note. The second beat falls on this note. So what that does is it sets us up with a clear 1, 2 that we can rely on. Then beat 3 happens right here. Even if you don't read music, you can see that this note and this note look pretty much identical. That's because they are. So we have 1, 2, 3. But then this E, which is sticking out to our ears, happens right here. If you're not a music reader, not a musician, that's okay, because I can explain to you that this E is happening in between one of those numbers that we're counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. It happens between the 3 and the 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that gives it that sort of bum feeling that makes us kind of want to move with it, and because our bodies are trying to figure out how to follow this, which is not a 1, 2, 3, 4 march. When we're not landing on the beat every time, but rather between the beats sometimes, it gives us sort of lift, a physical feeling of lift, which is why we often think of this kind of music as cheerful, upbeat, happy, even danceable. It gets us moving, and it makes us move in a way that is energized. The word for that in music is syncopation. There are all kinds of applications of syncopation. Some very subtle, some incredibly difficult to perform, others like this. You, playing along, can probably tap your foot, move your body, hum along, and land pretty much right at the same moment, because it just feels like you can predict and expect. So that's what's happening here. And then that little bass line, dee-dee-dum, it helps us have something other than just rhythm. Rhythm is wonderful, it's fabulous. But if we only have rhythm, then after a while it gets to be a little bit monotonous. And so these other musical elements, rhythm and harmony, if we balance them in just the right proportions, we get a level of interest that one alone cannot provide. So that's what's happening here. Is this E here that I drew an arrow to is happening off the beat. It's lifting us up a bit. And then you see right here, I'm drawing an arrow underneath. That is our beat 4. And that little symbol happens to mean silence. There's a feeling of a gap there. It's as if you are riding along. Let's say you sometimes see those little line rider video games or something, really simple games that kids play. And they're riding along, and then they have to drop or they have to leap over something, and a gap in the line. That's what we have here. But this upbeat E has given us the lift we need to cross over the gap, come down, bounce back up, and land again on the strong beat right here. So, all that is to say, even though this looks like and sounds like a very simple introduction to a fun tune, and we can just fall into it and move without thinking, yet when we break it down into the small elements, here we have really quite a lot going on in a small space. Now, the thing that makes it so predictable, predictable is the word, but at the same time, not too monotonous, is that we have this pattern, and it's repeated over and over and over. It is the fundamental material of this entire introduction. So, if we go to listen to the introduction again, with that in mind, we'll hear that it happens over and over again, but at the same time, because it is such an uplifting, buoyant figure, then it keeps us from feeling like we just have to sit back and be bored and wait for it to finish. Let's listen to it again. And now, of course, here comes the verse. But you'll hear that underneath the verse is the same figure happening. We have not yet changed to a different chord. We just have this wonderfully cheery, dynamic, buoyant, rhythmic figure set up with the introduction, and then the voice comes and enters and stacks on top of that. But underneath it all is the same thing going on. Let's start just before it and see how it sounds.
Can I touch you? Are you out of touch? I guess I never noticed that much. Uranium lover, I'm live on your wire. Who come and take me, whoever you are.
And now it changes. Because even when we have a wonderfully cheery little rhythmic figure, if it were to go like that for the next 3-4 minutes, we would begin to feel like it had gotten old. And so in the chorus, we have a longer line presented, more sustained harmonies presented by the instruments. And in fact, it's interesting because not only are the harmonies more sustained melodically, but at the same time, they're changing. Remember I said the first introduction and the verse is essentially just one chord the entire time. Now here in the chorus, we have this sequence. Listen to the electric guitar.
Whoever you are.
And so, even though it's kind of a conflicting set of ideas, but again, it's what gives us something to hold our attention. It is the longer sustained lines, bum, bum. At the same time, the rapidly changing or additional rhythmic element of harmonies changing. Because we have this thing where we talk about the rhythm of the piece, but then we also talk about the harmonic rhythm of a piece. And the harmonic rhythm is the rhythm at which the harmonies change. And it's not something that we're heavily aware of if we're not trained to listen for it. But it has a very notable effect on us. And so, here it is. Let's listen to it one more time. It's an A minor, whereas in the verse, we were built around E. Now we have A minor, going to F, to G, to D. If you have an interest in being able to replicate this on your own instrument or figure out what the harmonies are, that's what we have. And that's what repeats over and over in this song. A minor, F, G, D. And the verse is built around E. Here's that funny little trumpet sound. And we're really working with the E chord here. It's just an expanded version. Instrumentally added on to. But it's still the same thing that we had in the introduction. And I often refer to this with my students as glue. When we have something that features in the introduction that keeps coming back and holds us together. Maybe it's a harmonic series, maybe it's a rhythmic series, maybe it's a combination of the two, maybe it's a melodic line. But most often, we find it as either rhythmic or harmonic or a combination of the two. And that's what we have here, is this E harmony, E5. It's not really even a full chord. And then the instruments, the rhythms are built around it and creating this effect. So it enters right here where it says the interlude. And we're going to listen to it twice because I want to first notice this little trumpety sound. And then I want us to go back and notice the underlying rhythmic figure that is still the same. So first, let's enjoy the little brassy sounding thing. It is cute. It is, well, you can hear that it is again very repetitive. It repeats exactly the same thing every bar. And so what we have is this, actually every 2 bars, and this part. Yum bum 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 bum, and then the next bar we have the same thing again. Bum 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 bum, and this ending is slightly different here. But then we go back to what we heard in the first place. So again, you're seeing a lot of material being used and reused and built upon. And that is how we make a piece of music really easily fit together and belong. And it's the same sort of thing we find in very traditional folk style music, folk songs, folk tunes, even the lyrics. There's not a lot of big, inventive, creative, complex, sophisticated use of musical material, because that's not the point. We want it to be memorable. We want it to be enjoyable. We want it to be relatable, accessible. And this is how we make music relatable and accessible. So now let's go back. Listen to the same little interlude, which is based on the same thing we heard at the introduction. See if you can listen for that little beep, beep of the E, okay? And now it's continuing on the same figure for the verse. But instead of the trumpet sound. We have the voice. And now here's the chorus again. And this chorus is the same one we heard before, harmonically. Let's back up a little bit and pay attention to what happens in this iteration of the chorus.
Got me tonight. She's a lot like you. The dangerous type.
The same chord sequence.
She's a lot like you. Come on, hold me tight.
Now it goes a bit crazy. This is the guitar solo section.
Museum directors with eye-shaking hands.
Now, I wonder if you noticed that that entire guitar solo was built around the same E foundation, harmonic foundation, as both the intro and the verse and the interlude. Let's listen to this guitar solo again carefully and notice that the harmony is the same static E. At the same time, instead of featuring, of course it's featuring the guitar, so instead of being layered with instruments like that little brassy trumpet sound or the other guitar sounds that were backing the voice, or now the voice as well, instead it's just the solo guitar, and it's the guitar's turn to stand out and shine. And notice how the drum is simply providing the exact same rhythmic structure that existed in the verse and throughout the song. So we're listening both to the harmonic bass and the rhythmic foundation, and that creates the framework on which this guitar can do its fancy little dance. Here we go.
Come on, hold me tight. Museum directors with eye-shaking heads.
And isn't it interesting how the guitar solo doesn't have a hard ending before the voice enters? There's this wonderful eliding of the two so that the guitar solo kind of settles. We don't realize what's happening, but the voice comes in and then we find out that the guitar is supporting the new entrance of the voice in this next verse. It's a really nice, smooth way of linking the two together. And it's great to notice it. Listen again. We'll notice that little section.
Museum directors with eye-shaking heads. Big kick when
The guitar
shadows.
continues.
Do they play dead?
And now we have that wonderful little trumpety sound.
Or a crossword smile. Who can I take you out for a while? Yeah.
And you might have noticed that as this piece goes on, it seems to build and seems to add layers to it. And that's how the layers are added. Not in a way that we feel like, okay, slide in the next piece of paper, slide in the next board, stack the next tile on top. No, it's this nice smooth layering of one to another to another. There's really quite a bit that happened right here. Let me show you. This is the guitar solo, the ending of the guitar solo right here. And right at this point is where the verse enters. But you see that this guitar line continues on here. And that's how we get that wonderful layering. And then, just as that is beginning to settle out, we become aware again of this little trumpety sound coming in. Beep, 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 beep. And so it continues to flow and grow. Let's listen one more time there.
Museum directors with eye-shaking heads. They kick wet shadows until they play dead. They wanna crack your crossword smile. Who can I take you
Comes the chorus.
for a while now? She's a lot like you. Dangerous.
Same chord sequence.
She's a lot like you. Come on and hold me tight.
Little bit of voices backing it up here.
Dangerous type. She's a lot like you.
Notice the little trumpet sound got a bit different.
Tonight. She's a lot like.
So we've conditioned our ears to notice this little dee 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 dee. So now we'll be able to pick out when it changes yada dum bum bum, yada dum bum bum, which is happening right here. Listen for it. See if you can hear it.
Dangerous type. She's a lot like you. Come on and hold me tight. She's a lot like you. Dangerous type. She's a lot like you. Come on and hold me tight. Tonight.
Again.
She's a lot like you. Dangerous type.
Ah, it went up a little higher there.
She's a lot like
Little
you.
subtle.
Tonight. She's a lot like you.
Now we hear some strings joining in.
Alright. She's a lot like you.
The strings add a length and here they are higher now.
She's
A
a
long violin at the top.
dangerous type. Tonight. She's a lot.
And everything else is still happening underneath. All of this going on.
Tonight. She's a lot.
Little chime. Listen to how it just carries us along. It's like the current of a river.
She's a lot like you. Dangerous type. She's a lot like you.
A little hint of a flute sound.
She's a lot like you.
Back to the little chimes. Back to the violins. And as it fades out, we still hear the same chord sequence. And rather than come to a hard end, it feels like we've just passed this scene on the road and it's come and it's gone and we're still driving along. As I said, this is the only song I've ever heard from this band, Cars. But it seems like their name is appropriate to the music. It feels like something you would hear or listen to as you're driving. Cars, down the road. Certainly not metal, as Vlad told me. Now we're going to release this on the 18th of this month, December, in celebration of Elliot Easton's birthday. Elliot Easton is the lead guitarist of this band. He's also the one who sang the backing vocals in this particular song. So there were a couple of places where I was pointing out an extra voice. That was his voice in there that was adding the harmony to it. So for all of you who love Cars, who love the band Cars, who love to travel, who love to listen to upbeat, happy music, and to anyone else who likes to dig into music and unravel it and pull it apart and see how it fits together and how these different bands, different composers, different people create the sounds that we love to hear. To all of you, I wish you a happy celebration of Elliot Easton's birthday and continued enjoyment of good music. I'll see you next time.